Go through our normal pledge. We'll call our meeting to order. Roll call.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Before we do approval of agenda, let's go ahead and do our pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have a very short agenda for today. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Mr. President.
I have a statement I was going to read. Welcome to the Ozark School Board special meeting for the purpose of appointing a new board member to replace Guy Callaway for his unexpired term through April of 2026. I want to thank each and every one of the members or people who submitted application to be considered for this vacancy. It says a lot about the Ozark School District to have individuals willing to donate their time and energy to help make important decisions for the district. It should be known that while the board was aware Mr. Callaway intended to move, it was understood that it was entirely up to him to make the determination of when he was going to resign. To my knowledge, no board member knew in advance when he was going to resign, and his resignation was not received until it was emailed to us on the morning of December 19th, 2024. There are statutes that govern the elections, and then there are more specific statutes for school boards that must be followed. The Ozark School Board is following all laws specific to the filling of a vacancy position. RSMO 162.261, a 7-director district board terms vacancy prohibition on hiring spouse of board member when constitutional prohibited, and on nepotism applies to this district. More specifically, in that statute is the vacancy issue. The government and control of a 7-director school board, other than urban district, is vested in a board of education of 7 members who hold their office for 3 years, except as provided in sections 162.241 and 162.563, and until their successors are duly elected and qualified. Any vacancy occurring on a school board shall be filled by the remaining members of the board, except if there are more than 2 vacancies at one time. The county commission, upon receiving written notice of the vacancies, shall fill the vacancies by appointment. If there are more than 2 vacancies at any one time, the county, without a commission, the county executive, upon receiving written notice of all vacancies, shall fill the vacancies with the advice and consent of the city council by appointment. The person appointed shall hold office until the next municipal election, when a director shall be elected for the unexpired term. In our case, we consider the election to have started on December 10th of 2024. And because it started on the December 10th, we cannot do anything to change the election after that date. His resignation on the 19th was after that date, and we had to only assume that he was going to resign after that date. To fulfill the appointment of a board member, I've asked the board members to review the 9 applications received. From those applications, I have asked them to come here today prepared to write their first and second choice from among the applicants of who they feel most qualified to serve on the school board. From the names submitted, we will tally the names to see if there is a candidate that is selected more than others. At that point, a motion will be entertained, discussed, and vote taken. If there is a majority of the board voting to approve the motion, the new board member will be selected If a motion fails, a new motion will be entertained and discussion and motion approved until a selection is made. Unless there are any changes or motions to change the way we are going to go about the selection process. That's the way it is set forward.
Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
I do have first a motion about this meeting in general, about maybe adapting it somehow, and then a motion about the process to be used. First, and it's a little bit lengthy because I want to include explanation in it, in the minutes, like, you know, legislators would do or city council members would do. So permit me to read it. I've got copies for you all. If you'll just take one and pass it down, then there's one for the secretary to have also. Because RSMO 162.261, which Mark just read, provides the guidance which states any vacancy occurring in the board shall be filled by the remaining members of the board, and it ends with the sentence, the person appointed shall hold office until the next municipal election, when a director shall be elected for the unexpired term. And because RSMO 115.125 is clearly applicable to school board elections, as it is the one in which provides the guidance which states that the filing period for any election would normally be the usual one used to determine the start and end of the filing period for school board candidates in December, the filing period that Mark just mentioned. That's where we get those dates, is from this statute. The very same statute also prescribes a clear plan in subsection 3 of that section for what to do with an exception in the case of a special election to, quote, decide an election contest with a delay in notification, end quote, which is exactly the case in our school board vacancy. And because subsection 3 says the board could, quote, make late notification to the clerk, end quote, as long as it's done on or before 5 p.m. on the 8th Tuesday before the election. And because the 8th Tuesday before the election this year turns out to be February 11th, and because the one requirement out of the ordinary is to make that notification with a court order, which should come easily enough because the same statute finishes the sentence, continues by directing that the court order, quote, shall be freely given upon application by the political subdivision or special district, such as our school district, to the circuit court of the area, end quote. And almost last one, because the only cost to the political subdivision requesting such, quote, late notification to the clerk, end quote, in some cases might be the reprinting of the ballots, but since no ballots have been printed yet, since the names of filers from December do not even have to be certified to the circuit clerk until tomorrow, the county clerk until tomorrow, January 29th, means there would be January 28th, means there would be no extra cost to the school district. And because we are obligated by RSMO 162.091 to carefully follow the law with penalties, including fines or jail time, therefore, I move that we, as the board, have 4 actions. 1, request from the circuit court on Tuesday, January 28th, an order permitting us to make a late notification by 5 p.m. on February 11th to the clerk of additional names to be added to the ballot for a separate question to elect a candidate to a 1-year term, and at the same time alert the county clerk of our actions. 2, announce that the appointee to be chosen at the special meeting today, Monday, January 27th, will serve his or her term of appointment for the remaining 4 or so months until April of 2025, which is the next municipal election. 3, that we offer the usual 2 weeks to anyone, including the candidates being discussed today, January 27th, who wants to file to run for election for the remaining 1 year of that unexpired term, that they could come and pick up a packet and file to run. And number 4, then we would certify the names of the candidates for that additional question on the ballot for the municipal election to the clerk by February 11th.
As I've told you before, we've been advised from our attorney that this does not apply and we cannot do any of this.
Right, that's my motion.
Okay. Is there a second to her motion? With none, your motion fails.
That's fine.
Christina, I got a question for you, and I appreciate you going. I know that probably took some in-depth time to kind of look through that piece. And I think for clarity for everybody, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, is we want to make sure that we follow the correct statutes here. And I'll speak for myself here just momentarily, but my understanding, I'm not an attorney, right? And I don't have a Juris Doctorate. Do you have a Juris Doctorate?
No, none of us
Okay.
do.
And pass the bar?
No,
Neither have I.
but we
So
can, like
no,
James
I'm
said
not,
last
I'm,
time.
I
we
mean,
can
I haven't
both
got
read
to my
English.
question yet, but you can, so my point to that would be, we ask and we have a very highly, and you've made some comments about her that I don't think warrants what the rest of the board feels.
I'm sorry,
But
I
a very
didn't-
school-specific attorney, like somebody with, our attorney is school-specific, right? And from our understanding, the general statute that you just in depth went through is, you could see where that would apply if it were not for the fact that the 162-261 supersedes that. It says specifically, this is what school boards do. That's a great general piece that you've laid out, right? But our understanding from somebody who is one, passed the board, right? Has a Juris Doctorate, been a school-specific attorney for about 30 plus years and is highly regarded across the state, award-winning. I'm not legally going to give you legal advice because I'm not licensed to do so. Are you, and I see all this in here, it very much feels like not an opinion, it's legal advice. So is this an opinion or are you giving us legal advice?
As James said last time, I'm reading the law and I understand what
But I
you're
think
saying
you're
about,
just
no,
saying
let
that
me
you're
finish.
making
I
more
understand what you're
applicable.
saying. I understand what you're saying about the general statute and the more specific statute applying, but I don't think they're contradictory. They're complementary. The specific statute in 162 talks about what school boards do, and 115, the general statute, as we call it here, is how to do those things. And it's applicable to us as evidenced by the fact that the filing period in December is not talked about in chapter 162, but it is in chapter 115. If that same section of statute, that 115.125, if that section can give us the December filing dates, it can also give us the directions for how to make a late application to the clerk.
Is that your opinion, or are you getting that information from someone else from the legal field?
Dustin, I'm not sure if you're trying to question me on this.
I'm trying to understand
Anybody
you.
can read it and understand. I have talked to election authorities, different county clerks, to ask, how does this supposed to work? Our state representative has pointed it out. Many different people have pointed it out.
I talked to our county
it
clerk
seems to
who
me-
actually conversed with
it
Green
seems to
County's county
me-
clerk that
let me
we
finish
were
what I was saying,
we were
please.
doing what we are supposed to do by Rule 162-261.
It seems to me we've been given incomplete information. And as any preacher would say, you have to preach the whole counsel of the word, right? We have to consider the whole part of the law. We can't just ignore parts of it and say, oh, never mind that. This other part tells us how to do our appointment that we want to do. It tells us how to do it. It tells us how to make those elections. We can't just ignore part of it.
You're right.
I agree, because 115 is broad over elections, but the other one, and I believe it states in there, unless there's a specific, and we're going to our specific one, because there is a specific one for school boards.
It doesn't mention
This,
unless there's a
and-
specific one about school boards. That's different stuff.
this,
It
this,
only applies when there's not a superseding specific statute.
It's not what it says.
this specific statute is for vacancies. So the other one is, you're correct, the other one is for broad general terms, but this is specifically for vacancies. And these specific cases, vacancies, board of terms, prohibition on hiring spouses, and some other stuff. So vacancies, it says it specifically, it seems like it was written for board members, so there's no confusion. I don't think this is written for lawyers, it's written for board members. It says any vacancy occurring in the board shall be filed by the remaining members of the board. It doesn't give you any other clause The other one is not pertaining to this. Here it specifically says, hey, let's go ahead and make a specific statute so there's no confusion. There's no clause here that says, well, you know, if you feel like changing it or whatever.
So then why do we have the filing period in December from the 10th?
That's the other part
To
of the
the tw-
statute,
to
but
the
this
31st.
is
Why-
specifically
Why,
written
wait,
for
that's my one
vacancy.
question. Why do we have that filing period set for that time between the 17th Tuesday and the 14th Tuesday?
Because
Why
if
did we
the-
do that?
I believe if there's not a specific one that says so, then we do divert to the election laws, right?
We
And-
did that
and-
because this law tells us right here, it's the same exact chapter and section. It tells us how to do it. And it even includes if there's a delay in notification pursuant to subsection 3 of this section, which there was a delay in notification.
Again, yes, that statute does pertain to school boards, but this one is specifically for vacancies. So they call it out specifically how to fill vacancies. You're right, like that does specifically pertain to election law in certain cases, but here they specifically say, okay, hey, we're going to be specific on vacancies for school board members, for school boards.
And
So-
that's true. The one that we're talking about, the school board one, 162, the last sentence in it says, the person appointed shall hold office until the next municipal election,
Right.
when a director
which-
shall be elected for the unexpired term.
which like Mark said, the election starts, the election period, the filing period starts in December 10th, the 17 Tuesdays prior.
No,
Yes.
that's your general statute saying that. Your general statute that says that also says if there's a delay in notification, then it starts the 8th Tuesday, which is February 11th.
I mean, we could continue to discuss this, but I think at this point,
Did you have a second motion?
I did have a second motion. And I appreciate that you guys listening to me, and I appreciate Mark gave me some honest responses via email, and I appreciate that discussion too. My next motion has to do with if we are going to go ahead and appoint someone that's going to fill the rest of the term, whether it's April 25 or April 26. It sounds like it's going to be April 26. I move, and this is a short one, in order to preserve transparency to the public as required by the Sunshine Law, I move that we as the Board of Directors set aside not more than 10 minutes at the beginning of this meeting to discuss and then officially determine by vote the method to be used for the selection of the appointee who will fill the vacant seat on the school board. And here's a copy for all of you. We'll take one and pass it on. There's one for the secretary also, please. Thanks. So that way it's not, no one can say one person made up the process to be used, but we can actually talk about it and vote on it. Just take one and pass it down if you would, please. I
Is
appreciate that.
there
There's,
do you have a suggestion or is it just your?
yeah, well, first I move that we discuss the process, and then if we do decide to discuss the process, I do have a suggestion for how to do it. But like Mark announced the process already, so I wanted to see if you guys are willing to discuss.
As a board president, I have the prerogative to set.
Right, I know you do. That's why I asked. I wanted to see if you guys were willing to
Is
discuss.
there a second to her motion? With no second, your motion dies.
Okay. Then my third motion doesn't have much to do with it. I wanted to make sure we had some objectivity in this process by using a ranking scale, like teachers would use a rubric in school. So I had developed a sample that we could
Thank you.
revise.
All right. If you would, please go ahead and
Would you
write
like to-
down your top two candidates for the position. There's a piece of paper supplied to you, or there's a notepad supplied to you, either one. As soon as you get your names written down, you can pass them to me and I'll read them off to our board recorder. Secretary to post them up on our board. Mhm.
You want these just on one sheet or two sheets for 1 and 2, or how do you want to do that?
Just one sheet.
Okay.
Fine. Do I have everyone's,
Just count.
she's gonna. I do know. Okay.
Thank you, Barbara, for doing that for us.
First
Thank you
name,
for doing that.
Matt
for us.
Growcock and Rae Ann Wade. Rae Ann Wade, one and one, and then Rae Ann Wade has the second one. And Patrick Sullivan. Matt Growcock, Rae Ann Wade. Mark Burton and M. Bubs Houlihan.
Mhm.
Is it M. Bubs O'Houlihan? Matt Growcock and Ashley Jones. Ashley Jones and Laura Elliott. Okay. Right. Matt Growcock has 3, Rae Ann Wade has 3. Ashley has 2, Laura Elliott 1. At this point, is anyone willing to make a motion off of the names read so far?
I'll make a motion to appoint Rae Ann Wade.
I'll second that.
Motion to appoint Rae Ann Wade. All in favor of that motion? 3.
Are we all vote, I mean, so we're abstaining or we're, gotcha, yeah.
3 in favor.
I have to abstain due to a family member of hers working at my business, so I'm going to remove myself at this time.
Just from the vote, right? Just from the vote, right?
Oh, from the vote?
Yeah.
Okay, what should I do?
Just abstain from the vote
Abstain from the vote, okay.
if it's for her. So we have
Did you do a vote? Oh, sorry.
2 in favor. Any opposed? Motion fails.
Make a motion to appoint Matt Growcock.
I'll second that.
A motion for Matt, seconded by
My name's Amber.
Amber. A lot on my mind today. All in favor? All in favor of Matt Growcock as our new appointee? 4 in favor. Any opposed? 2 opposed. With 4 in favor, Matt Growcock is now our new board member. Without any other items on our agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Somebody's raising their hand. Mr. Down.
Sir.
Isn't there supposed to be a public interview process of or however many board candidates who are voted out from the main list?
No, there is no defined set structure to how this process is to be done.
Mr. Downey, Mr. Downing, would you be willing to come up to the mic so we can all hear you? I want to hear what you're saying. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to hear.
The board will review all applications at a regularly scheduled board meeting or at a special meeting called for that purpose. The board may select final candidates to interview in an open session, or a board may decide not to interview candidates or make final selection from the applications. The board will discuss applications and interview candidates in open session. That's what the policy says.
We'll discuss. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about, if we had gotten to have a second and a discussion on the motion to discuss the process of selecting the person.
It says we have the option to do that or not.
Then the policy is figure out itself.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
There a second?
Second.
Seconded by Amber. All in favor?
You forgot to do all opposed.
Any opposed?
Any
Any
abstentions?
abstentions?
Recording
Thank you all for
stopped.
coming.